All right. So today is all about Krishna pastimes. So some of you are asking the Jagannath story, Eurelevation story with spirituality. Okay. Stories of Gopal. All right. Cool. So we'll start with some relevant modern day stories because it might seem like Krishna Lila is all stories from Bhagavatam happened 5,000 years ago. So I'll talk about some tangible, real stories that have happened in the recent years, and then we'll go also to Krishna Lila, and we'll cover some of the requests from you all as well. So we'll start with the Brahma Vimohan Lila. So basically, Lord Brahma was notified that, you know, there is this boy named Krishna in Vrindavan, and he has been doing a lot of really fancy pastimes. Maybe he's a magician, maybe he is a yogi, but he's killing demons and he's doing all kinds of things that are extra human, superhuman. So Brahma was like, no, no, no. If God has come down, if my Lord had come down, I would have been notified. I would have known, but I don't think this is him. This is just a magician. I can disprove him very, very easily. So Lord Brahma, after hearing a lot of rumors about Krishna in Brahma Loka, he came down and he was watching what is Krishna doing. Um, and he noticed as he was watching that Krishna killed a very big demon. I think it was the Aghasura, the snake demon, massive demon. Krishna just ripped it apart. So Brahma's like, this is a powerful yogi, but he's a magician. He's no real deal. I will disprove to him very easily. So whenever Krishna's cowherd boys or the cows or the calves get in trouble, Krishna personally goes and takes care of things. So what happened was Lord Brahma decided, I'm going to kidnap some of these cowherd boys and calves to Brahmaloka. So first he went and took the the calves, the baby cows, and took them to Brahmaloka. And so as the calves were not to be found, all the boys were having lunch and they're like, where are the calves? Krishna's like, don't worry, you guys rest, you guys enjoy the lunch. I'm going to go check. So as Krishna went to check for the calves, Brahma came and took the boys, the cowherd boyfriends that Krishna had, and took them also back to Brahmaloka and put them in sleep stage. And so they're all sleeping. The calves are sleeping and the boys are sleeping. And then Brahma comes down to see what is happening in Bhuloka, like in Vrindavan. And to Brahma's utter shock, that he sees that nothing has changed. All the calves are there, all the cowherd boys are there, Krishna is playing, doing the usual things he does. Brahma again goes back to check if those boys and calves are there in Brahmaloka, and he sees they're there, but here Krishna, those same people are here. And he's like, what is going on? Now you need to understand something. Brahma going to Brahmaloka and coming back, although it's a very short span for him, for us it's 1 year. So 1 year had passed when Brahma kidnapped these cowherd boys as well as the calves. So what happened? So now Brahma doesn't realize this thing, but in that 1 year, Krishna did some amazing things. So these gopis in Vrindavan, as you know, they all wanted to get married to Krishna. That was their heart's desire. And how would that happen, right? All these gopis get married to one Krishna, and Krishna was only a little boy. So this 1 year, when Krishna actually, what he did when he realized Brahma was playing tricks with him, he expanded to the calves and he expanded to the cowherd boys. And that one whole year, it was insane, because generally what happened when Krishna would come back with the cows and the calves and the cowherd boys, all the mothers in Vrindavan would go for Krishna and hug him, like, oh, Krishna is back. Even more than their own children, they would love Krishna more because Krishna is so attractive, right? Their attraction to Krishna was so strong. Even with the cows also, the cows would go to Krishna more than their calves. But this 1 year, because Krishna had expanded to all the cowherd boys and all the calves, the cows were extra passionate in loving their calves. All the gopis were extra passionate about loving their children, because actually that was Krishna, and that attraction was playing out. So they were not going to Krishna separately. They were actually exchanging loving affection with their child, or the cows with their calves. And that way Krishna had expanded, and they were all having that exchange with Krishna without even knowing, right? Because Krishna was in the form of their children. And somehow, in this situation, Krishna Leela, Krishna also orchestrated such that all the cowherd boys got married to the gopis. So you have to understand what happened, right? They're all Krishna. So because the desire of the gopis was to marry Krishna, this Leela was so perfect that Krishna used this 1 year as an opportunity to get married to all the gopis and fulfill all their desires. That way they all feel, they all got what they wanted. So right now is 1 month of Katyani Vrata, which is the vrata that the gopis did to get Krishna as a husband. So unmarried women generally, do Katyani Vrata and whatnot. So they get Krishna like husband. So that's what they got. By praying to goddess Katyani, they were able to get Krishna in this form. So Krishna kind of tricked the situation, but also fulfilled the desire of his devotee. So that is nature of Krishna. He, with one activity, he can do multiple things and satisfy multiple parties, right? And that's the nature of Krishna Leela. So people think Krishna Leela as stories, but Krishna Leela has many layers into it. One is for external, right? For people who are common people, common masses to see, oh, how cute Radha Krishna, or Krishna gopis, Krishna cows, Krishna with the peacocks, all of that. It's cute stories. Internally, there is Krishna reciprocating with the devotees, right? And even further internally, if you look at it, another layer within the core is Krishna actually enjoying his relationship with his devotees. That is what the core of it is. Just like Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Paritranaya sadhunam vinashat dushkritam. So sadhus are always above on Krishna's priority list. And the dushkritas, the demons, killing of the demons, is lower on the priority list. So he is more eager to associate with the sadhus or his devotees. And by the way, he also vinashacha dushkrita. He destroys the miscreants, the demons. So it's so in this case, what's happening is, so the gopis now. Another aspect of this Leela. So, okay, let me finish that Leela first. So then Brahma goes up, looks at the cowherd boys and all sleeping and all, Shushupti, and then he comes down and he sees they're all here. And then he's confused, like, what is going on? And as Brahma going up and down, 1 year passed, all the Krishna expansions are married to all the gopis, all the cows and calves, they're very happy. All of that has happened. 1 year of pastimes have finished. Of course, Lord Balaram was wondering, what is going on? Why are they all so affectionate towards the children suddenly instead of Krishna? Because when Balaram couldn't realize what was happening, finally he asked Krishna, did something happen? Did you do something? Krishna smiled. Balaram understood. Okay, Krishna has expanded as these gopas. Then finally, Lord Brahma, when he came down, then Krishna actually showcased to Brahma that you think, you're very proud, you think you know me, right? And then what Krishna was just eating, there's a beautiful picture, a rendition by a devotee in ISKCON. Many of you might have seen it. Krishna eating a butterball, little, dahi on his hand, and there's all these other cowherd gopas sitting around, and each cowherd gopa is a 4-armed Narayana form, right? And so basically he's showing Brahma, all of those cowherd boys are me. And not only each one of those boys are in Narayana form, but behind each one, there is a whole entourage of the Vedas personified. So Samaveda, Yajurveda, like that, all the Veda, Rig Veda, right? So these Veda personified, they are offering great prayers in Sanskrit to these personalities. So Krishna is just sitting there eating butter and dahi, and he's showing, my expansions are being worshipped by Vedas personified, and you think you're a great Brahma. Of course, he doesn't say anything. He doesn't say a word also. He's just smiling. And Lord Brahma understood, oh my God, who am I dealing with here? This is God himself, and I am so stupid. I thought I could recognize him, but he is beyond my mind and senses. And again, to remind you, Lord Brahma's body is made up of intelligence, right? So just so you understand. So he's the most intelligent being in this universe, and Krishna is beyond his intelligence. So he realized, he fell at the lotus feet of Krishna and said, "I'm so sorry, Krishna, that I made this mistake. It's my pride and my arrogance. Please forgive me." And he was offering. So there's in Shrimad Bhagavatam 10th canto, there is the Brahma Vimohan Leela. And there Lord Brahma has, there's a part that is dedicated to Lord Brahma's prayers. So if you get a chance to read the prayers, you'll understand how deep the prayers are. And after, literally like pages and pages of Brahma's prayers, Krishna doesn't react. He just like, "Okay, are you done? Can I go play?" And he just like walks around and goes away to play. So what happens in Brahma's case, he is completely confused. He doesn't realize if Krishna has forgiven him or not. In Indra's case, what happened was, when Indra lifted the Govardhan hill, all the devotees of Krishna were brought together to Krishna. But in Brahma's case, he separated Krishna from his devotees. You do not do that. Krishna does not exist without his devotees. He doesn't like to exist without his devotees. Of course, Krishna can do anything. But the point is, he doesn't like to be without his devotees. And here, Lord Brahma, just test out, he separated him from his devotees. So in Indra's case, Lord Krishna was a little bit more like, "Okay, fine, you messed up. No problem. Go away. Let me play." But in Brahma's case, he didn't react. He just said, "Can I go play? Are you done?" And he moved on. So Brahma was confused. He's like, "I don't know if Krishna has forgiven me or not." So Brahma decided to do penance or tapasya, right? He went into dhyan and he came to this place called Surabhi Kunj. Yeah, he came to this place called Surabhi Kunj in Mayapur in West Bengal. Of course, thousands of years before Lord Chaitanya came. And he started offering prayers and doing all kinds of penances. And finally, he got the blessing to come as Haridas Thakur in Lord Chaitanya's Leela. So Lord Chaitanya, can I get a yes or no from everyone? If you don't know Lord Chaitanya, just say no. So I know if I have to explain more. Everybody knows Lord Chaitanya? If you don't know, just say no. Okay, so everybody knows Lord Chaitanya. Okay, but in case you don't know and you're shy to say it, Lord Chaitanya is the avatar, yoga avatar of Kali Yuga. Krishna comes in Kali Yuga as Lord Chaitanya, and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was, he took his appearance in Mayapur in Navadvip Dham in West Bengal. So there, in Lord Chaitanya's pastimes, which is 550 years ago approximately, there was this devotee called Haridas Thakur. And Haridas Thakur was somebody who was born in a Muslim family. And even though he was born in a Muslim family, from a very early age, he had attraction for the Lord. And as Lord Chaitanya came, Haridas Thakur, became extremely attracted to the holy name, and he would chant 192 rounds every day. So for those of you who chant 16 rounds, it takes 2 hours. One round takes 7.5 minutes. One round is 108 times chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So that's 108 times is one round. Haridas Thakur would that do 192 rounds every day, which is basically 23 hours or so, right? So he would only like sleep, use the washroom, and eat in 1.5 hours. Rest of the times he was chanting the holy name of Krishna. And he was preaching and other things. I don't know how he did it, but very mystical personality. Of course, he's Lord Brahma reincarnated. So Lord Brahma, because he was not sure if Krishna forgave him, he took birth again, in this time as a devotee. And Lord Chaitanya named him Namacharya, which means you're the Acharya of the holy name, because he was chanting so much with so much faith that he is the Acharya, the teacher, the guru for the holy name. That's his position. So a very, very exalted personality. So not getting into Haridas Thakur's pastime, that's for another day. But here, so this is the story of Brahma Vimohan Leela. Any questions so far? Anybody didn't understand any part of the story? I didn't go into much details, but this is kind of overall the story. The history, I should say. No questions. Okay. All right. So next story, I'm going to come down to Kali Yuga and come down to like now. So when the Hare Krishna movement was being started uh, in the United States. So let me see which one to start with. So Srila Prabhupada, he trained up three couples, Mother Malati and her husband, Mother Yamuna and her husband, and another couple, I forget their names. So they were in Canada. Prabhupada trained them up in basic kirtan because it was brand new. The Hare Krishna movement just started. So they were chanting, they got initiated, they got married under Srila Prabhupada. It was brand new. So New York Temple had started, San Francisco Temple had started, and then Montreal Temple had started in Canada. And Montreal, I think Srila Prabhupada was training these devotees. And he said, look, my guru, my spiritual master always wanted to establish the Hare Krishna movement in London, in United Kingdom, because they were ruling over India for so long, and we want to make them into devotees. So why don't you go to England and you establish the Hare Krishna movement there? So of course they were brand new and they didn't know much deep depth of the philosophy, but they were extremely loyal to Srila Prabhupada. And they said, okay, Srila Prabhupada. They didn't have money also. So back in those days, to go to United Kingdom, you would have to have $1,000 that you have to show in your bank account. So this is how they did it. So one couple would go to UK, and then they would show the bank account $1,000. Then they would transfer that to the next couple. They would show that, come to UK. Then they would transfer to the next couple, and they would come like that. With three couples came, and they were doing every day. They were doing Harinam. They rented a place with that $1,000, and they were really trying to get people excited about Krishna consciousness. Somehow it wasn't working out. So they got this idea, why not get some of the influencers? Today we know social media influencers, right? Back in the days, there were influencers also, like the Beatles. So they were like, why not get some of the influencers involved? And that would help us spread this movement very quickly. So what at that time, Beatles had the recording company that was called Apple Records. Right, just like we have the Apple company. So it was not that Apple. I think it was before Steve Jobs' Apple. It's called Apple Records. So every day they would make apple pie, and they would go to the studio of Apple Records and give them prasadam apple pie. And every day they were doing this. And finally, after 2-3 months of trying to, expand Krishna consciousness in the UK, they were not successful. They were running out of money, and they were like, you know what? Our rent is due. Our visa is about to expire. We don't know what to do. Nobody's showing interest in Krishna consciousness. Maybe we should just go back. And as they were discussing this, kind of morose. Now they didn't have money to also pay for making these apple pies that they were going to gift every day at Apple Records. So they stopped giving those apple pie. And then eventually, these devotees were like, what do we do? One day they were walking down the street chanting Hare Krishna, and Mother Malati is still alive. She is the GBC of Detroit. And she, I did an interview with her, and she told me personally that literally there was money floating in. Money came flying in, literally. I'm not making this up. Money came flying in, and maybe there was some drug dealer throwing money or something, like some of the movies you see, people, maybe something like that. I'm not saying it's like coming from heavens. Krishna's not a printing press. But what I'm trying to say is money flew in, they caught the money, and they were like, you know what, this is amazing. So they had exactly enough amount to pay the landlord to extend their stay a little bit. And with that, they had enough money to make some more apple pie. And they were like, okay, we can extend our stay a little bit with this money. And somehow Krishna manifested that. So this time, when they went to Apple Records with the apple pie, one of the people said, oh, you guys are the Hare Krishnas, right? Like, yes, why? So Shyamsundar Prabhu went there. He's still alive. And there's a book called, I think it's called Catching the Rhino or something like that he recently wrote, where all these stories are given. So he said, hold on, somebody wants to meet with you. And so Shyamsundar Prabhu was told to wait, and comes down George Harrison. And this time you have to understand, the Beatles were end all be all. They were the biggest stars in the world, not just UK or America. They were the biggest stars. So George Harrison came down and said, I've been waiting for you guys. I love your kirtans. I have been eating your apple pie. They're absolutely delicious. And you guys stopped giving to us. What happened? And like we ran out of money. It's like, oh, don't worry. How about we record this label, with the Hare Krishna temple, we'll call it. I'll take care of all the recordings. You guys do the kirtan. I will do the direction, and we'll launch it. Now imagine, Hare Krishna movement was nothing at the time. ISKCON was nothing at the time. And as soon as George Harrison launched the Apple Records, it became number 4 chart busters in UK, number 2 in Czechoslovakia. All over Europe, there was the songs were getting Hare Krishna Kirtan and another Brahma Samhita Hare Krishna Kirtan. There was Isha Upanishad, Om Purnamaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate. All these different songs in that album went crazy. People were just listening and listening to them. And there was a Hare Krishna explosion that happened, right? And then George Harrison helped build our first temple. And he gave his house, the Bhaktivedanta Manor, to ISKCON. So I have been there many times. Those of you know me, I've seen Facebook pictures at the Bhaktivedanta Manor. I've been to George Harrison's house. There's massive, it's majestic, and it's absolutely breathtaking. The deities, the temple, the house, the lawn, it's mind-blowing. So he gave his house, he helped build the temple, and he also funded the first Krishna book. And George Harrison, even today, when they made a documentary on his life, just reading the documentary, watching the documentary, people joined the Hare Krishna. So the point is, somebody who's an influencer can have a very deep impact. And George Harrison's case, he asked Srila Prabhupada, can I shave my head and join the temple and become a monk? Prabhupada said, no, go on stage and sing your songs and also sing Hare Krishna with it. So you'll see Hare Krishna, George Harrison, after becoming a devotee, My Sweet Lord and all these songs, if you YouTube them, you'll hear there's Hare Krishna chanting happening in the background as George Harrison is playing. And he says Hare Krishna also. And this literally thousands and thousands of people who are intoxicated with drugs and alcohol, they're also chanting Hare Krishna. So that's what an influencer can do. That's what George Harrison did. And even after passing away from this world, till now, when people read his books, I've met people who have become devotees. They're like, oh, I read George Harrison's biography. I was a musician. And by reading his biography, I came to Krishna consciousness. Wow. How awesome is that, right? Even after leaving his body, he's still preaching with his legacy. So just wanted to share a kind of contemporary story. Now I'm going to tell another story. This is in New Vrindavan, West Virginia. So West Virginia, the temple we have, ISKCON temple, is called New Vrindavan. So New Vrindavan is up in the hills. So when I was driving there, it takes you like several hours to drive up the hill. So there's nothing there. Literally, it's it's just forest and mountain, right? And back in the days, they were poor, so they had literally nothing. So I'll tell you 2 stories from it. One was one Mataji. She was offering bhog on the altar to Lord, and there was nothing. There was no fruits, nothing. There was just tulsi and some rice. So she cooked some rice and put some tulsi, and she offered to the lordships. And in her mind, she was offering. She's like, my Lord, I'm sorry, I don't have nice offerings to make to you, but in my mind, offering you these fruits. And she was thinking of certain fruits, right? And she was like that, she was offering. When she offered that, she opened her eyes. She heard something. Somebody came into the temple room. She looked back, and there was this man who was bringing in crates and crates of fruits, exactly the fruits she had offered to the Lord, Radha Vrindavan Chandra, right? The crates and crates of fruits were coming in. And she asked them, who sent you? She's like, somebody sent me. And there was a delivery boy. He was just a delivery boy. He doesn't know much. But somebody sent him with crates and crates of the same fruits she was offering to the Lord. So Krishna hears your prayers. And when you sincerely offer something in your mind, Krishna can manifest that, right? So it's very important that it's not just the mantras and the bells that we are ringing, not just the rituals, but the heart should be there. Another story of the same deity, Radha Vrindavan Chandra. So are you guys bored? Are you okay with these contemporary stories? Or do you prefer I talk about from 5,000 years ago? Stories are fine, but I'm saying contemporary. Okay, you all good with it? Okay, cool. All right. So what happened? Radharani's dress, her clothes, Krishna's clothes. So if you see ISKCON temple, our deities are very beautifully decorated with clothes and garlands and everything. And some of those clothes are very, very expensive. So they need to be, they cannot be just washed in a washing machine. They have to be dry cleaned. So now West Virginia, again, it's a village. It's a village, like it's a rural place, right? Poor place. So devotees would take the garments of the lordships and take them to this township that was there, and send them for dry cleaning. So one day after dry cleaning, when the devotees came to take back the clothes, they went uphill, and then they noticed one blouse of Radharani was replaced by a blouse of somebody else, some little girl. And so he came back and to the dry cleaner and said, "Sir, it's a very expensive blouse that got replaced by somebody else's blouse. Can you please, when this person comes inquiring for the blouse, can you please get our blouse back? Next time I come, you can give it back to me." They said, "Sure." So he returned the blouse and he was waiting. Few weeks went by, and one day this white, Western woman, she came all the way in, and she came with the blouse of Srimati Radharani, and she asked the local devotees. She's like, "Hey, can you tell me who this blouse belongs to?" And one devotee was like, "Whoa, how do you have access to that?" Because it's Radha Krishna's dress. Only the pujaris have access to that. And she's like, I'll tell the story, but I first need to meet the person who this blouse belongs to, because that person is very special. And this person realized that there's something mystical going on. So he said, "Okay, you just have to wait for a little bit. The curtains are going to open, and the person this blouse belongs to, you will see her on the stage, on the altar." She said, "Okay." So this is not a Hare Krishna devotee. This is just a common American woman, middle-aged woman. So she waited, and then the curtains opened, Radha Krishna, and she said, "What do you mean?" Like, "Yeah, so that's God, and that is God's eternal consort, and this blouse belongs to her." And then she started getting very emotional. She said, "I have a story behind it. Can I tell you?" It's like, "Sure." It's like, so my daughter was dying from cancer, and she was in tremendous pain. There was chemotherapy and other medications being done on her, and she was in tremendous pain, and she was crying every night. And somehow or other, this blouse got exchanged with her blouse from the dry cleaners. And when I brought it home, my daughter immediately grabbed this blouse and she wouldn't let it go. Until the day she died, she held on to this blouse very close to her heart. And as long as she held on to the blouse, she was not feeling any pain. And so I never let her away from the blouse till she died. And she died a peaceful, painless death because of this blouse. So I realized this must belong to somebody very, very special. And I wanted to find out who. So when I went to the dry cleaners, they told me, they gave me your address and they said they will give it to you. I said, "No, I wanted to meet this lady in person." And that lady was Srimati Radharani, right? And so there's another story of the same Srimati Radharani. What happened? One lady, one young girl, she had ran away from her father, and she took refuge in the New Vrindavan temple. And nobody knew. So back in the days, devotees didn't question so much. Where are you from? Show me your ID. How old are you? None of that. It's like, okay, devotees coming in. So there's a men's ashram, there's a women's ashram. So this lady was in the women's ashram. And it's like, okay, she's a Hare Krishna. Okay, no problem. And she was hiding. Nobody knew that her father was a massive gangster, right? And then finally, the word spread, and her father got to know that she's hiding in New Vrindavan temple. And they came with the entire gang, those bikers with those leather jackets. They were one of those biker gangs. And they came in and they were literally shooting, shots. They were serious. They were like, and the girl had figured out her father was here. She ran away, right? She ran away. And so the gang, these thugs were there, and they were with guns. They were shooting here. They told one devotee, dig your own grave. Once you're done digging, I'm going to bury you alive there. And that devotee, what to do? He was, there was a gun to his head. He was digging his own grave. Then another person went on the altar to steal the mukut, the jewelry of their lordships, Radha Vrindavan Chandra. And what happened, Srimati Radharani decided to fall on her face. So she fell head first. And it made such a big noise that the dacoits outside, they thought that devotees had guns, and they ran away. So it made sound like a bullet shot. So when it came from inside, they ran away, and Radharani's head got cracked. And the pujari who was at gunpoint, his life got saved. So Radharani saved his pujari's life to, just fell on her face, and this dacoits all ran away. And years later, devotees in New York were doing Harinam, and there was a man on a wheelchair begging for alms, begging for food and money and all that. And when the devotees were passing by, of course, devotees give, if they have prasadam or something, they give to beggars and whatnot. And this man asked one of the devotees, you guys are very special. And he was crying. He said, why do you say that? He's like, do you know your temple that you have in West Virginia? He's like, yes. It's like, remember many years ago, there was an attack on your temple? It's like, yes. It's like, I was one of those people who attacked and shot some of your devotees. And look at what happened to me. And this man was paralyzed. He didn't have legs. He was begging on the streets. And he's like, now I realize how special you guys are. And you're really doing God's work. And we came and we hurt you. And so each one of those members of the gang are paying their price, and they have gone through tremendous crisis after that. We shouldn't have done that. I just wanted you guys to know that, right, that this happened. So again, long story short, we think these deities are made of marble or granite. It's not. They are Radha and Krishna, and they reciprocate. They protect. Their presence can protect, a whole city. They're there. They are the main owners. Like Srila Prabhupada named the deity of London as Radha Landaneshwar. So whenever I go to London, the first thing I do is first take darshan of Radha Landaneshwar, because they are the prime attraction, more than Buckingham Palace or Oxford Street or whatever else. Radha Landaneshwar, for me at least, is a prime destination. So I first take their darshan and then do whatever work I have to do. So Prabhupada named Paris also deities as Radha Pariseshwara, right? The Lord of London, the Lord of Paris, like that. Because that's the whole point. The deities are there, and that's why we are here. And that's why Kali Yuga has not become as worse as it generally gets during this time. Generally speaking, Kali Yuga is far worse. But this Kali Yuga is very special because of Lord Chaitanya's advent. And as a result, 10,000 years of golden period has been given to us. And in this 10,000 years, the Hare Krishna movement is supposed to grow, right? For the first 5,000 years, it's supposed to exponentially grow and become the number one most influential religious movement in the world. Right? That time we probably won't see in our lifetimes, but it is meant to happen. And the next 5,000 years, it's still going to grow, but at a lower stage. And after that, real Kali Yuga, real ugliness and darkness will kick in. If you think this is bad, imagine what's going to happen later. So better to chant Hare Krishna and go back to Godhead. But the point is, when we go to the temple, we should understand these deities are extremely special, and they are Radha and Krishna in their original form. We don't have the eyes to see it, but Srila Prabhupada could. Just to give you an example, one time Srila Prabhupada was visiting a temple, I believe in Germany. And at that time, Sachinandan Maharaj, who's a very well-known monk in ISKCON, he was a brahmachari at the temple. He had left his girlfriend to join the temple, and he was thinking, should I go back to my girlfriend? Should I not? Should I go back to my girlfriend? Should I not? And he had this wonderful service of cleaning Krishna's plates. So when Srila Prabhupada came to that temple, the first thing he does is goes to the deities and offers his respects, Radha Krishna, and Prabhupada would have a conversation with Radha Krishna. And Sachinandan Maharaj, at the time, he was just a brahmachari, young devotee, who was in dilemma. Should I stay Is Srila Prabhupada really the right guru to dedicate my life to? Is Radha Krishna really the end all be all? Or should I go back to my girlfriend and live the life I wanted to live? So he was in dilemma for several weeks, and he wanted to meet Srila Prabhupada to get some clarification. Srila Prabhupada came to the temple, looked at the deities. Without looking at anything else, he said, "Call the devotee who is cleaning Krishna's dishes." Sachinandan Maharaj, at the time, Sachinandan Prabhu, came and he said, "Prabhupada, you called for me. I'm cleaning Krishna's dishes." Prabhupada said, "Where is your mind? You're not paying attention. Krishna is saying his dishes are not cleaned properly. What are you doing? What are you thinking?" And Sachinandan Maharaj got his answer. It's like, okay, if Krishna is speaking to Srila Prabhupada, and nobody's supposed to know this, that I was in this dilemma, and I was not doing my service properly, and Krishna complained to Srila Prabhupada, he's not cleaning the dishes properly. Prabhupada said, Krishna is saying you're not cleaning his dishes properly. He's like, my life is yours, Srila Prabhupada. And he became a dedicated soldier in the Hare Krishna movement. And today he's one of the most influential gurus. And German Yatra and Europe, he has personally, given so much, initiated so many disciples, and continues to write amazing books. And he's amazing, amazing sannyasi in our movement, amazing guru, etc. So Sachinandan Maharaj's contribution is marvelous, and it all happened that day when he realized Srila Prabhupada and Krishna actually talk. So there are many such stories of Srila Prabhupada talking to Krishna, but the point is, get the idea that when you go to a temple, especially ISKCON temple, where we worship with so much love, 7 offerings a day, new dresses every day, so much love and care goes into the lordships. Krishna is personally present there. And when you see them, you're seeing the Lord and the Lord is seeing you. You might not have the eyes to see him yet, but eventually you will. But the reciprocation is there for sure. I will guarantee you that however you're reaching out to them, if you reach out as marble, he will reciprocate as marble. If you reach out as Radha and Krishna, they will reciprocate as personality of Godhead. That's how they do. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, "Ye yatha mam prapadyante tam sataiva bhajami aham." Right? Okay. 8:11. Any other questions? Anything you have before I go on to the honoring some of your requests?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. I had a
Hare
question
Krishna, Sohil.
with respect to your first story.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sorry, I couldn't ask you that time. The question was, I'm a little confused. So, Lord Brahma will live on forever, right? Like, as in, he can't
No,
die,
no,
right?
no. No.
Because you said he was born as. Okay.
Maybe you missed some of the earlier classes of chapter 4. It is very clearly given in chapter 4. Lord Brahma's lifespan is 311 trillion years. So Lord Brahma dies. And so does all the devatas, 33
Okay.
crore Dev Devi that are there. They all die when Brahma dies. It dies in the sense they end their Leela and they come down and they're born like us in Bhulok, in Earth planet. And then new Brahma comes, new Chandra, Surya, Ganesh, Varuna, all of these personalities, positions are taken.
Okay, Prabhu. Got it.
So if
Hare
you
Krishna. Thank you.
want, you can go back to some of those lectures that are recorded and you can watch them. And go to chapter 4 text. First 10 texts, you will be able to get all of that information. The first 2 texts itself Krishna talks about 2 million years ago, I spoke this to the sun god. And then Prabhupada in the purport gives the descriptions of the way to, and I also shared in the WhatsApp group the picture so you can see, how the timeline is measured. Brahma lives for
Yeah.
100 years.
Okay.
In Brahma
Yeah.
Loka time
I had
zone.
seen that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So that's Brahma's lifespan. He doesn't live forever.
Okay.
Does it
Yeah.
answer your question, or you wanted to answer something else based on
Okay.
that?
No. It answers my question. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So our Indranath had requested Jagannath story. Harish had talked about personal realization and spirituality. Shivam said stories of Gopal. So I have 15 minutes. Let me see if I can do 5 minutes, 5 minutes, 5 minutes. All right. Jagannath story, something I've not told you yet. Let me go to Gopal's story, and then I come to Jagannath. So, okay. So Krishna, funny story, Damodar story. Krishna comes to steal butter at this Gopi's house, and she was very much ready to catch Krishna, right? Red-handed, because Mother Yashoda never believes that Krishna is stealing butter and all that, because Krishna, I'm feeding my son, so the best butter possible. Why would he steal at your house? You guys are all in illusion. So this Gopi was like, I'm going to catch Krishna and bring him red-handed to Mother Yashoda and prove to her that her son steals butter. So what she did was all the windows and doors had bells. So as soon as Krishna opens the door and windows, she will get notified by the bells, and then she will catch Krishna. So Krishna comes with the monkeys and the cowherd boys to steal butter. He gets in and he climbs on the wall and gets the rafters and everything. And then, hold on a second, I'm missing something here. So Krishna invites, Krishna orders the demigod of bells to come. So there's Devata for bells, right? So he said, all these windows and doors have bells. Make sure they don't ring. I'm going to steal butter and I'm going to go away from here, and you're going to make sure it doesn't ring. He said, fine. So this demigod is dressed up in all bells, head to toe, right? So he's there. Supreme Lord has said. So his boss has said, no bells should be ringing. So Krishna nicely steals the butter, and then he starts feeding the monkeys and his friends, and starts eating himself. And as soon as Krishna starts eating, all the bells started ringing. And the demigod of bell is standing right there. Just like, I just told you not to play these bells. He said, yes, you said when you're leaving not to play these bells. But the scriptures say that when you're eating, honoring bhoga, that time bells should be rung. I'm just honoring the scriptures. Krishna said, good logic. So, you don't want to, as God, you've made the laws, so you don't want to break those laws. So he's like, So now comes this Gopi, Radhik. She's like, Krishna, got you. Now I'm going to catch you. I'm going to take you to Mother Yashoda, and I'm going to show her that her son is a thief. And I'm going to show her butter on your face, red-handed, you're caught. But she knows that if she's dragging Krishna by the hand, all the other gopis will ask questions, and they might protect Krishna. So what she does is she covers Krishna with her pallu, and then takes Krishna to Mother Yashoda's place. And finally says, Mother Yashoda, see, you said your son never steals butter, and I have brought Krishna as evidence. He was stealing butter. I caught him red-handed. There's butter all over his face, all over his hands. And she takes off her pallu and shows Mother Yashoda. Mother Yashoda looks at the boy and looks at her and says, are you okay? Is your mental state all right? She's like, why? What do you mean? He's like, that's your son. That's not Krishna. And she looks and she's like, oh my God, that's my son. Am I in delusion? Was it my son? Was it Krishna? I thought that was Krishna. I was clear that was Krishna. So she was completely confused. And then she walks out, completely embarrassed. And all the other gopis are laughing. So Mother Yashoda is also laughing. She's like, you want to take some rest? Are you okay? No, it's okay. I just want to go. So as she's walking back with her boy, again, her boy turns into Krishna. Krishna said, this time I was easy on you. I acted as your son. Next time, I'm going to become your husband. And that would be far more embarrassing for you. So don't mess with me. Right? So that's your Gopal pastime. All right. Jagannath story. So Lord Jagannath. So there, in Jagannath Puri, a little away from Lord Jagannath's temple, there is a beautiful garden. And that's where the flowers for Jagannath are grown. And there was this little girl. She used to sing every day some prayers of glorification for the Lord. And she would sing from so much of her heart that the Lord would personally come to listen to her. So every day, when the pujaris would open the altar, they would see Jagannath's clothes are torn. There's dust and mud all over the place. Because, there were thorns. There were rose gardens and things like that. So Jagannath would rush there and rush back, and his clothes would get torn. And, he would have all this. They were wondering what is happening, how this is. So one day, devotees decided to kind of watch, keep a close eye in the temple, what's happening. And they found some pieces of cloth in that garden that were Lord Jagannath's own cloth. And some I'm sorry, I'm forgetting the evidence exactly, but they found some evidence that is not supposed to be in that garden. But they found and they realized Jagannath was personally going every day to listen to this girl sing the glories of the Lord. So then they said, hey, this is not good that Lord is personally going to listen to you. It's far better than you come to the temple, you stay in the temple, and every day before Lord Jagannath goes to sleep, and when you can sing to him these wonderful glorifications. That way the Lord doesn't have to personally go, you can sing for the Lord. And that's where I think the Devdasi ritual started happening, where I think even today they have women singing for the Lord and putting him to sleep. But it's no more legal to have women staying in the temple and all that. But for hundreds of years, this was a pratha of Devdasis, where women would consider themselves married to Lord Jagannath, and they would sing for the Lord, and they would dance for the Lord, and they would, try to please him with their songs and prayers. So again, a wonderful pastime where the deity is not just made of wood in this case, but he moves, he's there, he's looking at everything, and anybody who steals his heart, he's personally present, wanting to listen to his glories from them, right? So there's a Jagannath pastime. And then lastly, Harish's request on some of my realizations. Let me see what I can share that's relevant. Harish, would you unmute yourself and be more specific if there's something you want to ask specifically?
What made you to get into spirituality? So, what was that moment, and how did you? What came from your deep within inside? Like, what were the incidents?
Got it. So from a very early age, I was very attracted to understanding God. My father said that you're born, you die, and that's it. There is nothing else to life. And my mother said there is more to it than life. So as a 5-year-old kid, I was meditating. So in Calcutta, we used to have load sheddings, and those were my favorite times to meditate. And I was reading books from Ramakrishna Mission and other places and tried to find out about God. Finally, when I left India and reached America, I wrote letters to ISKCON as well as Ramakrishna Mission. Ramakrishna Mission, I went there because Swami Vivekananda had gone to Chicago. That's where he gave his speech. And so I was coming from that lineage of Ramakrishna Mission. My brother is a monk there, sannyasi there. My cousin brother, my uncle is a sannyasi there. So I was strongly from that background, but I never really connected with them because there's so much unclear philosophy. And when I went to Chicago also, I saw it was more about materialistic things, about jobs, and they're talking about money and this and donation. It was very impersonal. So didn't get much there. And then ISKCON, they were having a program at my university. And I was praying to Krishna that I want to know, now that I'm away from family, I have freedom, I want to explore life, I have this new opportunity. I want to know, who you are, who is God. And that's when I met my mentor, and my spiritual master. They were having an event. They took down my information and they emailed me. I responded back. We met. I went to the temple for the first time, Chicago temple. And I still remember they were having a Narsingha Leela. And when I saw that, I saw my childhood in it, where they were showing Prahlad Maharaj was being tortured. They were trying to kill him in different ways. And I, as a child, I was abused in various ways, bullied and all of that. And the only way I had survived through all that was my faith in God. And I could see that that child was, myself and I was crying, actually. And Nrsimhadev was protecting Prahlad the whole time. And I realized that moment that even though I didn't know Krishna, Krishna knew me and he was protecting me throughout my life. And my mentor saw me. At that time, he was not my mentor, but he had invited me to the temple. He saw me. It's like, I'll let you stay here, but when you want prasadam is upstairs, you can come and join us. And then I saw that after the drama, there was devotees chanting and dancing, and they were black, they were white, they were Hispanic. And I'm like, I'm Indian, I'm Hindu, I'm a Brahmin. I don't chant Krishna's name. I don't chant Hare Krishna. And these are people who are so far away. What is going on? It was like a shock, right? And of course, I went upstairs, got prasadam. Next day, when I was going to my classes, I couldn't stop chanting Hare Krishna. In my mind, that tune of Hare Krishna Mahamantra chanting was just there. And I still remember going to my class and just couldn't get it out of my head. And then slowly, I started, I became the president of the student organization on campus. And I started learning and preaching. And slowly, once I realized what it is, started chanting as well. And things changed. But the point is, there has been, so since you asked today we're talking about Leela. So Krishna Leela, I'll kind of share maybe one Leela. I was going to an investor meeting. Yeah, we were going to an investor meeting. It was a very, very important meeting. And I wanted to make sure my rounds are done. My chanting is, me and Ishodanandana, my business partner at the time, wanted to make sure that we finish our rounds and we go. So 4 rounds were left for us. And generally 4 rounds take half an hour, right? 7.5 minutes per round. So 4 rounds, half an hour. And we had only 20 minutes. So he and I said, we'll be 10 minutes late for a very important meeting, but that's okay. Let's prioritize Krishna and everything else will follow. So we finished our 4 rounds and we were like looking at the watch, and we took our time. It was not we were rushing through the rounds. We looked at the watch and literally it was the exact right time. It was 20 minutes. It was not half an hour, but we felt it was half an hour. We did the same pitch, and he and I both looked at each other. We couldn't talk. We were in complete silence mode. And then we both blurted out like, time is Krishna's energy. And he just showed it to us. When we prioritize Krishna, he can tinker with the energy of time. The material energies are Krishna's servants, so he can do anything he wants. So that day I got a personal realization that, wow, you think chanting takes more time. How will I get time for chanting? But if you really prioritize Krishna, he manifests more time for you. And he can, and there are so many such amazing leelas that have happened in my life. It's almost unbelievable. And continues to happen. And I'm sure all of you who are in Philosophy Friday for a while have been experiencing that. But yeah, this is a very live, living, thriving relationship with Krishna that we have. And he's very strongly present, and he makes his presence felt in our lives. So miracles are not something that is rare in a devotee's life. It's very, very common. But yeah, does that answer, Harry?
Yeah, thank you. Really appreciate that.
Thanks. All right. Anything else? Any questions? Any realizations? We have 4 more minutes left. Anybody wants to unmute their mic and ask anything?
Prabhu, there is a question in chat box, I think.
From you? There are a lot of texts.
No.
Sir Prabhupada once said 80% devotees will not go to Goloka. Is it true? I heard this from Amog Leela Prabhu. I heard from Prabhupada we're all going back to Godhead. I can spend 24 hours reading these stories. Deepak is asking, Srila Prabhupada said, okay.
That is the question only.
Okay, yeah. No, that's no. I mean, of course, if Amog Leela Prabhupada said it, maybe Srila Prabhupada mentioned it somewhere. But please understand there is context behind whatever Srila Prabhupada says, according to time, place, and circumstance. So, but at the same time, Srila Prabhupada said, if you follow the 4 regulative principles and chant 16 rounds, you're guaranteed to go back to Godhead. And if you don't, if the seed of Krishna consciousness has been planted in your heart, it might take a few lifetimes, but you're going to go back to Godhead. The moment you've got in contact with the devotee or devotional process, right, you're bound to go back to Godhead as long as the desire is there. Sometimes the desire is not there. So, Srila Prabhupada is a potent father, and we have to be fertile soil. Only then the seedling of bhakti, Krishna bhakti, will fructify. If the potent, like this says, father is potent, mother is fertile, right? So if mother is not fertile, no matter how potent the father is, the seed won't fructify and the child won't come, right? Or the father is not potent and the mother is fertile, same thing. So you have to understand that we have to be fertile, we have to be eager to receive this knowledge. And Srila Prabhupada, we know already, is a fertile, is a potent, seed giver of Krishna consciousness. So as long as we take it, we can and continue to grow the plant of bhakti, we are bound to go back to Godhead. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna, everyone. Have a good night. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank
Hare
you.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.